Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody had a chance to grab some breakfast. You can't hear me? Can everyone hear me okay? All right, fabulous. So, welcome everyone. I'm sure for a lot of us, this is the first time we are getting together in public. So, yay! That also means that there are probably going to be, on my part, technical difficulties. I may fall off this lovely step that I've had to place because I'm not quite tall enough for this podium. So, you know, that's the beauty of an event. So welcome to Sheba Talk, Women in Health. We're really excited to have you all here to join us today to celebrate the incredible women at Sheba who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. For those of you who are watching from home over Zoom, because we have a contingency in Montreal who are also doing this brunch, and they're tuning in from Zoom, welcome and thank you for joining us today. For the men in the crowd, thank you for supporting the women in your life, and we will try to wrap this up before the next Sunday football game starts. I see my husband's tears because his game already started. So my name is Sharon Vinderine, and obviously I'm going to be your MC today. I'm honored that I was invited to co-chair today's event. With all of the challenges that we have faced over the last year, I was really quite desperate to be able to get back to making a difference to something other than the annual revenues of Netflix. I am thrilled to have had the opportunity to work with the Sheba team to put together today's event. And I hope this is the first of many luncheons where we can get together over some good food, good company, and have an opportunity to make a difference. Why are we here supporting Sheba today? I know this is a new organization for a lot of you. It's a hospital on the other side of the world. Well, because I believe that research and patient care has absolutely no boundaries. And the more I learned about Sheba and the impact it's having throughout the world, the more excited I was to get involved with this organization. You're going to hear more about Sheba from Einat momentarily. We have a fabulous lineup of speakers for you today, and each one is going to kind of be doing this TED Talk wise. So it's 10 minutes and then 5 minutes for questions. The speakers are all via Zoom, coming into us from the Sheba Hospital in Israel. You're going to hear from Professor Tzipi Strauss, Professor Michal and Dr. Galia Barkai. We have also been lucky enough to have a chance to listen to the beautiful voice of Shani Sieperman, and she's going to be singing for us some more. And of course, this is a charity event, so let's be overachievers and go to those silent auction tables and bid, because of course, at the end of the day, it is a fundraiser. You're gonna have a chance after our second speaker to go back to those auction tables, and then it'll close, and we're gonna be announcing who wins the auction items at the end of the event. So before we begin, let me introduce Einat Inbar. She's the Executive Director of Canadian Friends of Sheba Medical Center. Einat?
I did some exercise this morning. Hi, everybody, and good morning. Thank you for coming. I just want to check that we are on Zoom and Montreal can see us. Yes, thank you. So let me start with some thank you. I always put like written notes, but let's see if I can follow it. I'd like to extend a warm thanks to our wonderful committee. Sharon Vinderine, thank you so much for the hard work. You are amazing and fabulous. And Rhonda Pomeranz, thank you so much for your hard work and for your help. Ayala Reiter, thank you so much. Daphna Mukadi, which couldn't come today, but she's online. Thank you, Daphna. We have Mirit Skolob. Where is Mirit? Thank you. And Galit Blumenthal. Thank you so much for your hard work. In Montreal, we have a lovely group. We partnered with a Spanish and Portuguese synagogue that are supporting us more than a year already. And we have our great committee there, Sandra Michal and Danny Sharabani. So I guess we'll give applause to them too. Thank you so much for your time, the effort, and to make today a reality. We have great supporters and sponsors, and it's a long list, but I'm going to focus on a few of them. I'll just mention a few of the supporters. Azrieli Foundation, Miriam and Yedidia Kuchiski, 1R32 Foundation, the Pomerantz Kola family, Marina Shechman, MNAT Sales, Kevin Westerwall, Regal Windows and Railings, Sharon Vanderin, parent tested, parent approved, and Dr. Daryl Reutman. And thank you again for coming out during COVID time. So people ask, what is Sheba? So you know it's a name of a place, but there is also Queen of Sheba. So we are not celebrating Queen of Sheba. Sheba is the biggest and #1 hospital in Israel. Sheba was ranked at the top 10 in the world in the past 3 years, which is great. Sheba puts together humanity, excellence, future medicine, and national responsibility. And I want to share with you a personal story that might well give you the idea of what is Sheba. So it takes me back to February 28, 2020. It was on the verge of a pandemic. I call it World War III. That's my lexicon, because something changed in the world. I was honored to go on APAC, and actually the chairman of the board, Daryl Reutman, and his lovely wife, Rosalie, we went together to APAC. We didn't know we are getting into a big pandemic on those days, but we were part of the Sheba delegation. Sheba had a very central part in APAC. You know, APAC, thousands of people around the world, mostly from the US. And Sheba had this insight that we are getting into a very serious pandemic in the world. And I remember Dr. Zimlichman was on the stage there saying, guys, in Israel, we are already getting ready for the big wave. And I remember walking with him after, like, to grab a coffee, and he said, you know, Einat, they have no clue here in the States what's going to happen. It's going to be a tsunami. They will have millions of people, I don't want to say dying, but eventually that's what happened. So from this moment, it was clear for me that it's not another Sheba great hospital, great treatment center, great research hub. Everything is great there, but they foresee beyond what we know. So for all of us, every morning when we check the news, we usually read what happens in Israel during the pandemic in the past, I believe, 18 months. And we see the data, the research, the analysis, the recommendation, what to do tomorrow morning. All of that comes from Sheba. And it's very important for us to recognize and acknowledge that Sheba is a leader in the world, really the one that can bring in the insights in the healthcare and how we will behave in the morning during pandemic. So now when we are here on Sunday morning in Toronto and Montreal and people connected from home, in the same time, Professor Kreis, who is the CEO of Sheba Medical Center, some of you had the pleasure to meet him, he is in Bahrain. Doing what? So we all know about Heskemei Avraham, the Abraham Accord. I think it's less than a year that they signed formally the peace process, but people that are involved with Sheba know that Professor Kreis went to Bahrain and the United Emirates, I think a year before it became formal, because Sheba is Israel. And when you talk Israel and peace, you talk Sheba, because it's not only a hospital, they are leading the wave within the reality in Israel. So if we are talking about tightening relationship between countries and making a real collaboration and peace between countries, Sheba are they are up to the mission. They get the mandate from the Prime Minister. It was the same with the COVID, now with this peace process, and they are literally now signing more collaboration between Israel and Bahrain. So for me, Sheba is a leader without boundaries. And that's what I want you to remember. Israel and Sheba goes together, and we are trying to change the world. Thank you for coming.
So again, if this is your first Sheba event, and I think for a lot of you it is, we are so happy that you joined us today. We have a really quick video, under 3 minutes, for those people who, videos scare them. So you have an opportunity to learn more about Sheba.
Only those who know how the day starts, but not how it ends, who tried, succeeded, then tried again. Those who worried, those who did not give up, those who felt the weight of responsibility on their shoulders, only those who saw the end and realized it was only the beginning, who brought new life into the world, who've tasted victory, those who constantly seek out the next discovery, those who believed, only those who slept 2 hours a night, who removed all social barriers, who kept their cool, those who dared, supported, protected, laughed, made others laugh, pioneered. Only those who broke new ground, who wake up every morning to carve a new path, only they understand hope has no boundaries. Sheba Tel HaShomer, City of Health.
Okay, so now on to our speakers. Our first speaker, joining us all the way from Israel, is Dr. Galia Barkai. She is the director of Sheba Beyond. Israel's first virtual hospital. Dr. Barkai serves as the director of the Pediatric Infectious Disease Unit and is also the head of Telemedicine Innovation Hub at ARC, which is Sheba Center of Innovation. Yeah, go ahead. Welcome, Dr. Barkai. Oh, I told you there's going to be technical difficulties. Okay.
Can you
Dr.
see my
Barkai,
screen?
yes.
There's echo. Okay, good morning. So we live in an era where we deliver healthcare beyond geographic boundaries. And we use information and communication technology to do that and call it telemedicine or telehealth, treating patients from distance. If you look at these two pictures, the one on the left was taken in the pediatric department of Safra, Sheba's pediatric hospital, which was my second home for a long period, or the one on the right that was taken during a mission to Papua New Guinea, you can see that I'm really close to my patients. I stand close to them. I'm listening to them. I'm looking in their eyes. I'm touching my patient. I'm just the opposite of the physician that takes care of her patients from distance. So how did I get to establish and manage a new hospital that treats patients from afar? Actually, it was all accidental. I found myself a few years ago in a multidisciplinary meeting to which I wasn't even invited. This was a meeting whose purpose was to talk about a new possible telemedicine project for Sheba. And I went there instead of my manager because he couldn't come. I don't remember exactly what happened there. I just remember that at the end of this meeting, I got the opportunity to lead this project. Actually, this project was a failure, but it showed me for the first time what telemedicine was. I was first exposed to it. So what is telemedicine? Telemedicine means connecting a physician to a patient by means of technology when they're distant, when they're not in the same space. So the hallmark of telemedicine is virtual visits. It's about connecting people, preferably using video, which can simulate quite well face-to-face visits. But technology now allows us to monitor patients in their houses, to monitor patients remotely. And this, for the first time, allows us to get objective, actionable data about our patients when they're not in the visit, between the clinic visits, which is actually most of the time. And this allows us to get better decisions. It allows us continuity of care, and it's really a very good tool. The possibility to store knowledge and forward it onwards gives us a lot of flexibility, since it allows a patient to store data, send it to a physician, even in a different time zone. So this is all telemedicine. And because of the great value and possibilities in telemedicine, we've been promoting in Sheba for several years telemedicine projects. But although we did a lot of efforts to promote these projects, it didn't really hit the mainstream of medicine. Telemedicine did not become medicine. And then came COVID. Sheba was the first to receive Israeli COVID-19 patients. These were Israeli that were on the Diamond Princess cruise ship on Japan. And Sheba was the first to receive them. You know, this ship had COVID-19 spreading, although strict isolation measures. And we only had 3 days to organize ourselves to build these Israelis a new facility to take care of them, an isolation facility. I was given the mission to create a model in which we give our best medical care for these Israeli patients, but with minimizing physical contact, harnessing telemedicine tools and technologies. And of course, the purpose was to protect our staff from this new threatening virus. Since we only had 3 days to get organized, the next day I gathered all the companies I knew that were dealing with communication, monitoring, and even physical examination of patients. All these telemedicine companies, most of them were Israeli startups. And I asked them to unify ourselves together to find a new model. It was really astonishing to see how all these competing companies worked up together really quickly and got themselves in this mission in order to work for a noble cause. So we use all these technologies and we inflated a tent. This tent usually serves us for missions abroad, crisis missions. And this time we used it as a control center to take care of our patients from afar. We used all these technologies and all the medical staff were there. And as you see, it drew a lot of attention. We also used new technologies to treat COVID-19 pregnant women in the COVID OBGYN ward. We used baby monitors and ultrasound used by these women and guided by their physicians that were staying in the control room. These helped us gaining experience in these new tools and send patients home with these technologies. Nowadays, we use them for post-date pregnant women, saving them the need to arrive to Sheba for follow-ups. As the pandemic evolved, we faced lockdowns and the need of our staff to stay in isolation. At the same time, there was softening of regulation and new modes of reimbursement were applied. And at this time, we decided to transform all our outpatient clinics to virtual clinics. We had a really exponential increase in video visit during that year, and we ended up to 2020 with more than 60,000 outpatient clinics. So we finished the first wave. We were optimistic enough, or maybe you can say stupid, to believe that soon everything will be over. And we wanted to use all this expansion to take it one step forward and expand further in the field of telemedicine. We had some new insights. We understood now that we had really good tools to do telemedicine that will help us scale and do big things. But most importantly, we understood that the world is changing and new hybrid models will prevail now that will allow us to take care of patients wherever they are. So at this stage, we decided to challenge the term hospital. It no longer has to be just a house for sick people, or as we like to say in Sheba, a city of health. It can be an organization that takes care of anyone, everywhere around the globe. And at that time, we decided to establish the first virtual hospital in Israel, Sheba Beyond. So the main asset of our hospital is Sheba's leading clinicians and know-how. What we do in Sheba Beyond is we match cutting-edge technologies to medical needs, and together with Sheba's leading clinician and know-how, we create new models of care delivery that will change medicine altogether. We launched our hospital in the beginning of 2021, and already now we have a very wide range of services, beginning with home hospitalization services, rehabilitation services, outpatient clinics, and even training courses and instruction. Our aim is to eventually provide every medical services that a hospital provides, maybe except surgeries and ICU, to all of our patients in their homes. This, for example, allows us to do this cool project that we have. What we do here is work with Maccabi Healthcare, which is one of the HMO, with the big HMOs in Israel. And this project of home hospitalization that we have in Maccabi Healthcare allows this patient, Sean, that has inflammatory bowel disease to be treated while he has an exacerbation in his home by his community nurse, Hila, together with his physician at Sheba, Professor Gadi Segal, which is the head of internal medicine department and head of our home hospitalization services in Sheba Beyond. These two persons, Hila and Professor Segal, work in two different organizations, but in this case, they work together to bring the best medicine there is to Sean in the comfort of his home. We also, as Einat said before, we aim to go globally. And as she said, we have a collaboration with the United Arab Emirates. So our first international project is a telemedicine diabetes clinic that we have formed with El Tadawi Medical Center, which is a healthcare organization based in Dubai. In this clinic, for the first time, Emirati patients will be treated from afar by Sheba's specialists in diabetes. And as we already know, but now we can see how healthcare is the best bridge between people, is the best way to build collaboration, peace, and trust between people. And now with telemedicine, we can do it beyond borders. So technology will always develop much quicker than we can adapt. In order to provide the best medical care for our patients, we constantly integrate new technology. We do that with the help of our innovation hub in Sheba, ARC. And ARC helps us to collaborate with the industry, with the startup, with the academia to bring the best technology to be accessible to our patients. But with all these technological advances, one might be concerned that we will use the human touch. The human touch will be impaired. I believe that exactly the opposite will happen. I believe that our new care models will help us bring us, the clinician, to the homes of our patients, very close to our patients, in their houses. Because as I told you before, I value close contact. I'm not a physician that does things from distance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barkai. A question for you. Just one moment, please. Oh, can we turn that mic on? Go ahead.
Okay, so the question is, in order to communicate with somebody in their home, do you have to send them any technology so that you can do this? Because I read about the technology and it's amazing, but I think you didn't say what you have to do.
Okay, so basically, when patients in our home, when we need to communicate with patients in their homes, we can just manage with their cellular phone, and we tell them from afar how to download our telemed app, the Datos app, and they can communicate with us using the Datos app. So for certain patients to which we require to be monitored in their houses, of course we send the monitoring equipment. If we need to perform a physical examination, we'll send the Taito Care kit, which is a physical examination kit, and we can instruct them from afar how to use it. Actually, during this last COVID-19 wave, we developed the possibility to get to the patient's houses and send also nurses to the patient's home to help us even give treatments, take blood measurements, blood tests in their homes. And then when the nurse comes there, she or he can explain to the patients and can bring the equipment and explain to the patients how to use it. So it really depends on the service we have.
Thank you. And I think we have one more question over there. Chloe, thanks.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So like everywhere in the world, physicians in Canada pivoted right away to telemedicine as soon as COVID started. But we're now being encouraged to return to in-person care where possible. My question, I actually have a two-pronged question. One is, are there conditions for which telemedicine just doesn't work, that you really do need that direct physical contact? And I hear that you have a lot of extra technology to facilitate that, but for which conditions will it just not work? And the other is, you mentioned that you believe that it's actually going to improve a lot of elements in patient care. So do you actually measure some of those intangibles like communication, patient-physician, communication and integration? So those are my two questions.
As for the first question, of course, it doesn't work for everything. I think I said it in the beginning. Most of our programs, and I didn't have the time, to go and talk about all the different programs that we have. Most of our programs are hybrid, and definitely most of the programs, the first visit, or maybe sometimes the first 24 hours, are in the hospital, in patients. For example, we have a psychiatric home hospitalization program. In this, the patients are really admitted for 24 hours. And instead of staying a whole month, they will stay just 24 hours. And then they will meet their team. They will be given the treatment plan. They will be given the technology and explanations. And then they will go home. And even afterwards, they will come every once in a week to the hospital to meet in person. So it really depends on the program, and it depends on the person, both the clinicians and the patients. And of course, as in everything, we are responsible for our patients as physicians and our clinicians, and we have to know our boundaries. We have to know when it's not right to continue to monitor a patient from distance. And as I said, sometimes we ask the patients to come to the hospital, and lately we've developed the ability to go to their houses and to see them physically in their houses and still be able to keep them in their houses. So definitely it's going to be hybrid. It's not going to be everything from distance. I told you, I like close contact. I like to be close to my patients, and wherever I don't feel so safe about it, I will call them back or go to their houses. And the second question was regarding, what was the second question again? Integration. Can you repeat it, please?
So I was just wondering whether you actually measure some of the non-clinical, some of the less hard clinical measures, such as patient-physician communication.
Yeah, so I didn't tell, but just this is a good opportunity to add that we have training courses for all the clinicians who start doing telemedicine, and we do that in our simulation center, and we simulate communications with our patients in their houses, so we prepare ourselves. We also measure in almost all of the programs. We send questionnaires to the patients and sometimes the clinicians as well, and we measure, of course, clinical outcomes. We do satisfaction questionnaires. We ask them about their mental health, their physical health, how they feel. In many of the programs, we do prompts. So we definitely use these things.
So we have one more question. We have one more question that's coming in from Montreal.
Hi, Montreal.
Yep, go ahead.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much for this presentation. I'm very happy to hear what the hospital does for all Montrealers are very proud of what Israel does for us, and even more so to hear about the Sheba Hospital. So my question is to you today. In 2019, I visited the blood bank of Magen David Adom that is connected to your hospital. Am I right? Sheba Hospital?
Yes, there is a center of Magen David Adom in Sheba.
Yes, so we met with Professor Shinart, who I am sure you are well aware of, and was very impressed with the work they do. I wanted to know, how do you interact together, the two organizations? How do you work together? What does one do for the other?
So Actually, it's not exactly a question to me because I don't do telemedicine I'm the head of the telemedicine unit or telemedicine hospital. We still don't send, blood to people afar and not in the hospital. Although we're doing now a pilot with, Michal, how do you say rachfan? Drones, with drones to bring blood units to patients afar, but it's still in pilot stage. And actually, Magen David Adom is well embedded in Sheba, but you will have to ask, other people about exactly the way we interact.
Thank you very much. And I actually had the experience to use one of the products that was mentioned, TytoCare, and it's amazing. I don't know the right terminology for any of it, but a kit was sent and you could actually show the doctor through the video conference your child's throat, your child's ears. They could measure blood pressure, they could measure their temperature, and it basically allows parents who can't take their kids out, whether it's COVID, whether the child is incredibly sick, to get that peace of mind, to know that there is a doctor on the other side who can actually analyze and interpret what they're seeing. So it's really amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Barkai, who I think is gone. So yeah.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're there. Okay, thank you.
Bye, thank you so much.
Okay, so next up, we have Professor Michal Beeri, who leads the Joseph Sagol Neuroscience Center at Sheba. Professor Beeri is a recognized world leader in the study of Alzheimer's. She is also a professor of psychiatry at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, New York. She won numerous awards and has over 160 peer-reviewed scientific publications, and has been funded continuously by the US National Institutes of Health, the Alzheimer's Association, and other prestigious foundations since 2005. Welcome, Professor Michal Beeri.
Thank you. So I arrived, I'm actually speaking from New York. I arrived yesterday and I haven't slept much because of jet lag. So this is going to be a challenge to my own brain, and it's going to be intense. I think I'm going to have to do something like 12 minutes. So I hope Einat doesn't get upset with me. And I introduced behind me two things that I love in my life, in addition to my beloved family, which is the brain and chocolate. Now I can begin. So I'm going to try to walk you through relatively quickly, so please be with me and try to focus how we think that in Sheba we'll be able to contribute to humanity in the prevention of Alzheimer's disease. So just to give you an overview of how Alzheimer's disease is diagnosed clinically, there has to be an objective assessment of memory, and memory impairment has to be present. But in addition to memory impairment, we expect or we anticipate to see impairment in other cognitive functions, like in orientation in space, orientation in time, our capacity to make decisions, capacity to understand sense of humor, fluency of speech, and so on. We do expect to see deterioration compared to what the person was before. So the typical sentences that we're going to hear will be like, if you only knew what she was before, or he had an amazing memory, something that makes you feel that compared to the past, that person had a decline. We do see impairment in social, professional, and day-to-day activities. And professional, it's actually quite interesting because until, let's say, 10 years ago, people retired at the age of 65 or so, and that was it. And now people work until until the very end of life. So many times we get people coming to us and saying, at work, we were told that there are some signals that something is wrong. And finally, we want to have a differential diagnosis. We want to make absolutely sure that it's not a severe B12 deficiency, an ischemic stroke, a tumor, etc. So this graph is a sad graph, but it's also an extremely motivating graph. Well, we see that between the ages of 65 and 69, more or less, 4 to 5% of the people will have dementia. And maybe I'll take 30 seconds just to explain the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease, because people get confused. So dementia is an umbrella name for many diseases that clinically look like Alzheimer's disease, but the brain pathology underlying that cognitive impairment is different. So some people have pathology of Alzheimer's disease. I'll give you examples in a moment. Some people will have vascular dementia, which is dementia due to a vascular disease in the brain. Some people will have Parkinson's disease related dementia, and so on. 70%, if we take 100 people with dementia, 70 of them will have Alzheimer's pathology in their brain. And this is why people get confused, because the vast majority of the dementia cases are Alzheimer's cases. So if I go back, there are between the ages of 65 and 69, about 4 or 5% of the people will have some kind of dementia. And if we jump to the age of 85 to 89, it's over 50%. Now, mind you that those above the age of 85 are the fastest growing segment of the population in the Western world. And half of them will have dementia if we don't do something. So this is also a little bit of a sad news, but I promise you that towards the end, I'll have more optimism. So in the last 12, 13 years, over 460 molecules, different types of medications were tested to treat Alzheimer's disease. And I want to say none worked. It's not exactly true, because not too long ago, the FDA conditionally approved of the medication by Biogen. If we have time, I'll explain something about it at the end. But I have to say, meanwhile, that in terms of improvement in cognition, they haven't been able to show true success. So I want to say that generally speaking, we have failed into discovery of truly effective medications for Alzheimer's disease. Now, this is just to give you a feel that when we say that we're developing medications for Alzheimer's disease, we look at several different pathologies of the brain and try to target them. At the end, we're not going to call this Alzheimer's disease. It's going to be Alzheimer's disease of the amyloid type. It's going to be Alzheimer's disease of the microglia type or of the tangles type. Just like in cancer, once it was the disease, and today only in breast cancer, there are 70-something types of treatment protocols that depend on many characteristics of the woman who got sick. I believe Alzheimer's disease is going to go in that direction. In the different medications are trying to target different pathologies, admittedly, amyloid and tangles, which are based on a protein called tau. Those are two types of aggregates that happen in the brain of Alzheimer's disease and are a must. If you don't have that, it might be another dementia, but not Alzheimer's disease. Then we ask ourselves, why? Why have we all been putting so much effort, so much thinking, so much intellectual property into Alzheimer's disease medications, and we're not doing well? Now, there are a gazillion reasons why that might be the case, but I'm going to focus on 3 of them. One of them is genetic heterogeneity. Okay, so as I said before, I gave the example of breast cancer. There are several genes that, depending on what the woman has or doesn't, the treatment will be tailored according to what those genes do to the cancer. All right. So when we do clinical trials in Alzheimer's disease, the vast majority of the trials, we take 5,000 Alzheimer's patients, irrespective of their genetics, and we treat them. And we believe that with time, there is already a tendency to separate or to put people with ApoE, which is a particular gene that increases the risk for Alzheimer's disease, ApoE4, and people without an ApoE4. But with time, as science evolves, we probably are going to break down into those subgroups with different genetics and different pathologies that might react well or better to particular medications. The second reason is that it might be that we're not hitting the right biological target. All right, I mentioned before amyloid, and so many medications have been developed to treat amyloid, and they treat well amyloid, but they don't get cognition better. So then one wonders, wait a minute, so maybe we're not hitting the right biological target. The good news of making or failing is that it gives us a lot of motivation to look in very different and innovative directions to find new opportunities for brain health. And the third reason is the main issue that we at Sheba work with in terms of Alzheimer's disease research. When the majority of the studies of those 400 and something medications, they try to treat already ascertained Alzheimer's disease patients that already have the disease. When people have the disease, their brain is mostly gone. And I'm going to show you a graph that exemplifies, okay? The dotted line at the bottom is similar to the graph that I showed you with the green and the purple, right? So at the age of 60, 65, there is barely any Alzheimer's disease. And if you get to the age of 85, then it's going to be over 50%. This is clinically when people have symptoms. They have memory impairment, the family comes and something is wrong. What you see in the black hard line is pathology, is amyloid. And if you look well at those ages, you'll see that amyloid begins aggregating in the brain in middle age. 30 years, 25 years before a person shows his or her first clinical symptom. And I ask you, when should we be treating? When the person is already ascertained and neurons are dead, or far, far at the beginning, when we're able to possibly stop that pathological cascade and maybe prevent the disease altogether. So we have a major scientific goal, which we're pursuing quite intensely and energetically. This sentence is a little heavy, but I'm going to try to walk you through, and with the following examples, I hopefully will explain myself well. So we want to find technologies and tools that can identify the very first steps of Alzheimer's disease, when the eye of the doctor doesn't see them, when the family doesn't notice them. Those very initial steps that are very, very subtle and that none of us can see, we want to be able to catch them there. And in parallel, we want to identify the first biological changes that happen that signal that we're going to lose our memory and our cognition. And why is that? Because of the graph I just showed you. Because we believe that if we intervene in the very beginning, we might be getting into the optimal window of opportunity. Okay? So now I'm going to give you a couple of examples because we don't have much time to discuss this. So this is more like a show and tell a slide. We have what we want to call a Alzheimer's breakthrough program that does exactly what I said in the sentence before, defining the earliest behavioral and cognitive changes in Alzheimer's disease and defining the earliest biological changes that explain, that cause those behavioral and cognitive changes. So now I'm going to give you one example of something that we have been doing for the last 2 years or so. This is actually Retispec, is a company in Toronto. They're in Toronto. The owner is an Israeli guy, but he fell in love with a Torontan girl. So they are there with their very cute twins. And this company is developing a camera that takes pictures of the retina and identifies amyloid, that pathology that aggregates in the brain of Alzheimer's patients. Now, the retina is a protrusion of the brain and therefore is characterized by many, many similar features that the brain has. And what you see here on your left is actually a retina of a patient. I mean, this person, by the way, doesn't have cognitive impairment, but the patient doesn't have cognitive impairment with the way we measure it today. But you can see in those red dots here that there is amyloid in that retina, which is also found in the brain when we assess it with amyloid PET CT. And what you see in your right side of this picture is nothing, is a normal eye with no amyloid in it and normal cognition. On the right side of this slide, you can also see, I'm going to try to walk you through it, so don't worry about it. The people in green is a group of people who have mild cognitive impairment, And the blue, people are normal controls, people with normal cognition. And this graph is reflecting the difference in the signature, in the signal that this camera catches in the retina, telling us that those people who are already having initial cognitive impairment have something related to amyloid aggregation in the retina that is different than those people who are cognitively normal. And I view that as a very big deal, because if we're able to put this camera on everybody at the age of 40, 42, 45, and something is going on, we go on top of that person and start giving whatever we have in hands. And now to the earliest biological alterations, and this is almost the end because I know I'm tight with time. So I'm going to give you one example, okay, because it's very concrete and I think it's going to be interesting for you. So several years ago, we in Sheba, with our Israeli cohorts, discovered a gene that have been implicated in problems of diabetes in the body. And we were the first to show that it actually doesn't affect only the body, it affects also the brain. Now, a gene produces proteins, right? A protein that has, the gene encodes for a protein. We measured the level of the protein of that gene in our participants, and we found nothing. So we were very disappointed. We said, okay, so the gene is showing something, but what the gene function is not showing anything. How can that be? Here is where our general scientific direction for very early identification of biological alterations of Alzheimer's disease is going. There are novel technologies today in the world that are called omics, okay? It's a technology that is able to take all your genes, all the genome, this is what genomics, all right? Take all your metabolites, metabolomics, all your proteins, proteomics. So rather than looking at one protein here and one protein there, you look at everything, okay? There are technologies that allow that to happen. Because we deal a lot with diabetes, we collaborate with a group in the Weizmann Institute that measure glycoproteomics. So they take the protein and they look if glucose that connects to that protein is making that protein work better or worse. And with the glycoproteome, we have discovered, we're still replicating it, but we have discovered that glucose affects that haptoglobin, that bad gene function, which might be the reason those people have worse cognition. Now imagine, we're not there yet, but if that is true, then we have to discover how to modify that glucose from making bad to the protein and help those particular people not develop cognitive decline. So I think that's it. And if I have 20 seconds, I always show this slide because I love it. So this is Madame Jean-Louis Calment. She died at 122. I think there is a Japanese woman who died at 125, so she lost her record. She fenced until 85. She biked until 100. She smoked 2 cigarettes until the age of 117. And I always ask myself what made her stop then. She drank red wine every day. And the one based on my little chocolates here in the back, you will understand, she ate 2.5 pounds of chocolate every week. She died at 122, cognitively normal. And this is where we want to head to. Thank you.
That was amazing. You threw out some very scary statistics at the beginning, but I feel like you've also thrown out a lot of hope. So that's exciting. We have time for one question. Right over here, Chloe.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you very well.
She can hear? Okay. What is your view of immune dysregulation and inflammation as sort of being a potential cause of Alzheimer's, and the proteins and stuff sort of being an effect as opposed to a cause, and that's why when we get rid of them, it doesn't really help cognition?
Okay, so you're asking a very complex question. I'll try to give you a short answer, and then the idea that since I'm jet lagged and I didn't sleep tonight came to me, which has to do exactly with what you're asking. The brain of Alzheimer's disease patients is inflamed. Okay, I showed a picture, but I didn't focus on it. The immune cells of the brain are called microglia, and they become activated with Alzheimer's disease. What we don't know yet is if they begin the process, or if amyloid kicks in and triggers this microglia activation in a way that becomes dysregulated. Let's put it that way, many groups in the world are trying to figure this out. We ourselves in Sheba, we have a very strong collaboration with Harvard. By the way, when Harvard approached us for this, precisely on this topic, on immunity of the brain and how this may explain Alzheimer's disease and how can we modify it as a treatment pathway, I told this big guy in this big immunologist of Harvard, I told him, you can cross the street in Harvard and find people doing things right there. You don't have to come to us to Sheba. And his answer was, it is so hard to cross the street in Harvard. So I can tell you that in Sheba, we cross the street all the time. He crossed all the ocean for us. If you're patient enough and you give us probably another year, we're going to know if we have a potential monoclonal antibody to respond to the question you're asking. And if that works out, then probably in another 3 years, we're going to be able to talk about results of initial clinical trials, but we still have a little while to go.
Thank you so much, Professor Beeri, for joining us today. Okay, so I know you are all really excited to go put your final bids in. So before I let you run and do that and get some coffee, I want to take a moment to thank our amazing table of volunteers over here. Our fabulous gift bag sponsors, because if you've looked inside your bag, you have some pretty amazing things, and I expect to see you all suntanned the next time I see you, because there is awesome self-tanner in there. And of course, our amazing sponsors, without which this event would not be possible. So I'm going to take one more time to repeat them because they are amazing. The Azrieli Foundation, Miriam and Yedidia Koshitsky, 1R32 Foundation, the Pomerantz Kula family, Marina Shechtman, MNAT Sales, Kevin Wassermule, Regal Windows and Railings, and Dr. Daryl Reutman. So thank you very much. Okay, so you have 5 minutes, literally, run, put your bids on, and grab some coffee, and then we're going to have our last speaker.
something else you're searching for. I'm falling. In all the good times I feel myself longing for change. And in the bad times I fear myself. Tell me something more. Tell me about me in this modern world. Or do you need more? Is there something else you're searching for? I'm falling. In all the bad times I feel myself longing for change. And in the bad times I fear myself. I'm off the deep end, watch as I dive in. I'll never meet the ground. Crash through the surface where they can hurt us. We're far from the shallow now. In the shallow. In the shallow. In the shallow. We're far from the shallow now. I'm off the deep end, watch as I dive in. I'll never meet the ground. Crash through the surface where they can hurt us. We're far from the shallow now. In the shallow. In the shallow. In the shallow. We're far from the shallow now.
Okay, if I can ask everyone to make their way back to the table, we're going to be starting momentarily, please. Last call, can I ask everyone to please make their way back to the tables so we can get everybody out of here on time today? Don't make me start calling you out by name, people, because I recognize you all. Okay, everyone, we're going to be starting again now.
noise.
Yes, I think that the doctor managed to the people of discussing at this point is the concentration. Now, if you understand,
Okay, we are closing the silent auction now, so hopefully you have all had an opportunity to make your bids, and if everyone can please sit down. I'm not afraid to call you out, people. Okay, so before we get started with our last speaker, we have one more quick video for you from Sheba about the Children's Hospital at Sheba. So let's take a moment to listen to this video.
Sheba Medical Center at Tel HaShomer is the biggest and most comprehensive medical center in Israel, in the Middle East, and probably one of the biggest in the world.
The Edmond and Lily Safra Children's Hospital is the crown jewel of the Sheba Medical Center. This is a very comprehensive center taking care of children starting from birth through adolescence and until adulthood. At the heart of the hospital are our multidisciplinary teams that work day and night to provide top-notch care for our pediatric patients.
The medical treatment that patients receive here is the best standard of care, and more than that one can receive worldwide.
We have a vast service of medical clowns, psychological team that stands there besides the family in their times of need, all dedicated to provide the best holistic care possible.
We have strong laboratory infrastructure, and we can develop new therapies in our labs and take it very fast to the patients.
Our state-of-the-art facility and world-renowned teams has made us over the years an attraction for referrals from hospitals around the country and the region.
Medicine is a true bridge between people, cultures, nations. We have no barriers in saving child's life.
We provide care for the most severe diseases within Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and also many countries from around.
יונתן היום בן 9, בגיל 2.5 הוא היה חולה, לקחתי אותו לבדיקות דם ומתקשרת אליי המזכירה של הרופא משפחה ואומרת לי שהוא רוצה לראות אותי בדחיפות. הבנתי שמשהו מאוד מאוד לא טוב קורה עם יונתן, ראיתי את הפנים של הרופא והוא שלח אותנו מיד למיון. במיון כבר אמרו לי שליונתן יש לוקמיה. נכנסנו לאיזה מין שגרה של טיפולים. יונתן לאורך כל הדרך עבר את הכל בשיתוף פעולה עם המון אנרגיות חיוביות. הוא באמת צלח את המחלה. בגיל 3.5, חצי שנה בערך אחרי, שכבר הצלחנו באמת לחזור לשגרה מסוימת, פתאום בבדיקה שגרתית עולה עוד הפעם שהמחלה חזרה. הרגע הזה שאתה מאבד שוב את הכל, כאילו את כל מה שבנית, את כל המשפחתיות, את כל הזוגיות, את כל השגרה שניסית להיכנס אליה, ואתה אומר, אני עוד פעם בסרט הזה, זה כאילו, זה לא יכול להיות. כאילו, מה עשיתי? מה עשיתי? כאילו, מה עשינו לא בסדר? הילד שלך, שהוא כל העולם שלך, שהוא כל החיים שלך, העולם חרב.
Jonathan had all the standard treatment, had a lot of chemotherapy, had actually 2 bone marrow transplants, and despite all of this effort, his leukemia came back, and then we offered him a new treatment for leukemia and lymphoma called CAR T-cell. This was Israeli invention. We use cells from the patients, we grow them in the lab and enhance them with qualities that now they can attack the leukemia and eliminate the leukemic cells from the patient. After a month, his body was free of leukemia, he had no detectable disease, and it was really rewarding and fulfilling.
הצוות בבית חולים ספרא תמיד עם אצבע על הדופק על כל מחקר, על כל תרופה. פשוט לא להאמין כמה הם נמצאים איתך ובשבילך, הם כבר הופכים להיות חלק מהמשפחה שלך. פשוט מלאכים. תודה לאל, אנחנו כמעט שנה אחרי. יונתן באמת פורח, הוא היה כמעט כל השנה בבית הספר. חזר לשחק בגינה עם החברים, הוא רוכב על סוסים, שרק ימשיך ככה.
It's warming our hearts every time that we manage to take a kid who's very sick and offer him a good solution and a good quality of life.
קיבלנו את המתנה הכי גדולה שיכולה להיות בעולם. מתנה שאין לה שווה ערך לשום דבר.
So I think that is an unbelievably inspiring story about the research that is being done, and I'm sure just about every parent in the room can resonate and is probably feeling quite emotional after seeing that. And for those of you who don't know, and you can kind of tell the size of this hospital from the video, it is an entire city. So pretty astounding. So next up, we have Professor Tzipi Strauss, who has been the director of neonatology at Sheba Medical Center for almost 10 years. The Ministry of Health has awarded her department prizes for excellence for the past 6 years. Professor Strauss has more than 50 original articles in her field, and she participates and presents in international conferences each year. She is a professor in Tel Aviv University and holds a Harvard degree in Masters of Healthcare Management. Welcome, Professor Strauss.
Thank you, everybody. It is really a pleasure to join you from distance. Also was very interesting to hear the other talk, and I think and I hope that I will try, I think that my lecture will kind of touch a little bit from all of the fields that were mentioned. So I will just share my slides. Can you see that? Am I good to go?
Yes, we see you.
Okay. So this is Alex, a beautiful baby girl and a preterm baby born weighing just 1 kilo. She was in our NICU department for several months, and she had a very difficult and complicated hospitalization with many scary moments. We were very worried, and often we called her mom to say goodbye to her. Surprisingly, she improved and recovered, and today she's 3 years old, completely healthy. I have been in this field for 25 years. Many times we get to what we think is our limits, and we think there is nothing more to do. We think we cannot help or there is no hope. But each time we encounter our limits, we surpass them and we break the bonds of our limits. For 10 years, I have been the director of this wonderful department, the neonatal intensive care unit. And 2 years ago, I got my professorship at Tel Aviv University. And while this was a moment of joy, I had a different response. And I started to question myself. Had I reached the apex of my career? I mean, where do I go? Where do I go from here? And also, I started to have fatigue and trouble falling asleep and restlessness and some wrinkles around my eyes. And I met a friend of mine for coffee, and I shared my concerns. And she's a good friend. She's 10 years older than me and wiser. And she suggested, check your hormones. And I was surprised. I said, what do you mean hormones? I'm young. And she said, just check it. So I did. And my gynecologist called me a few days later with the invitation, welcome to menopause. I was like, menopause? I'm not even 50. How can it be? I mean, this is for women that have reached the apex, and it's a downhill slide from there. I mean, the women that are planning retirement and gaining weight, and gravity sets in, and wrinkles, and decreasing vitality, all of that. And I knew this would not do for me. So I also know that I am a lifelong learner, so I decided to dig in and study that. And I found out that in Japan and China, for example, women do not have menopausal symptoms. The main reason for that is their nutrition. They eat a lot of soya and tofu, all the food that contains phytoestrogen, so they get their estrogen from their diet. And I've continued to learn about the Japanese women. And then I found out an amazing new area called longevity. Longevity is long life or lifespan. So apparently, and when I continued to study that, I learned about 5 areas in the world called the Blue Zone. Blue Zone are Okinawa in Japan, Ikaria in Greece, Sardinia, Nicoya in Costa Rica, and Loma Linda in California. And these 5 areas are not geographically connected at all, but they do have a lot in common. And the main thing is that the people that in these areas, in these 5 areas, live up to 100 with no illnesses or chronic disease. And they're also vivid and riding bicycle and completely healthy longevity. So what is their secrets? So the last few years, those areas are being investigated and several things are in common. So they found out that they all share these things. So first is nutrition. They all have plant-based diet. They eat a lot of fruit and vegetables and olive oil, legume, fava, hummus. They are not vegetarian completely. They do eat meats here and there, but basically it's plant-based. The second thing is they all had some moderate sun exposure. And from this, we do all know about the importance of vitamin D in our body. The third thing that was common to all of them was the moderate physical activity. And I emphasize moderate. It's not the marathon, ultra marathon, etc., but it's bicycle, walking, swimming, gardening, very moderate activity. So now we know nutrition, sports, healthy life habits. I mean, it's not new. What's new in that? So there was another important thing that was common for all of the Blue Zone. And here, while exploring the area, I discovered another researcher from Harvard, Professor Robert Waldinger. And he has done one of the longest fascinating research in history. He followed thousands of people from birth to 75. It's a 75-year study. He followed people from different background, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and he followed them with questionnaire, medical records, MRI scan, etc. He wanted to answer a simple question. What makes us live longer and happier? And I bring him to you to hear his results. Okay, so do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so what he said basically, and I wanted to that you will hear it from his own words, but he said, and I quote because I know it by heart, what he said that after thousands of records from people that were not sharing any economic or ethnicity or socioeconomic, the only thing that makes them all happier and healthier was relationship. Period. That is what he said. So relationship. So in Japan, there is a term called Beeri. And Beeri means social obligation, the importance of relationship interaction. In Japan, when a person becomes old, he is the most important person in community. People want to be around him and learn from him and from his life experience. Relationship bonding starts at the beginning of life. We as neonatologists understand the importance of the parent-child bond. Skin-to-skin care, as you see here, is putting the child on the parent's chest. And a recent Harvard study showed that skin-to-skin care in developmental countries reduced mortality in 20%. We know the importance of skin-to-skin care for the improvement of the immune system and the brain development in preterm infants. So longevity, as we know from the Blue Zone, emphasizes the importance of nutrition, physical activity, sun exposure, and relationships. Happiness with a rich community life. All of these are on a macro level. But what's about micro level? What's going on with ourselves? So I met Professor David Sinclair, who is the father of longevity. He has a research laboratory in Harvard and in many other places. And some of you may be familiar with his work. He was one of the first to find out that for our health, we need to be stressed. And I'm not talking about emotional stress, but mild physical stress. He studied the effect of fasting on our body, especially in our cells. Fasting improves a process called autophagy. Autophagy is the body's way of cleaning out damaged and old cells, senescent cells, so that it might regenerate newer, healthier cells. Example of this, then this probably maybe you know, is the intermittent fasting, which means 8-16, or 8 hours eating and 16 fasting. Or another way of stressing your body, for example, is switching temperature from hot to cold water when bathing. His latest research, just now published, was really groundbreaking. He published in Nature, one of the respective journal in medicine, under the cover title, Turning Back Time. And in this study, he took old mice that suffered from retinal degeneration and blindness. He implemented genes from embryonic tissue, and he using a virus. And through that, he succeeded to renew the cells in the eye and bring back their vision. This is groundbreaking. I mean, he took blind old mice and restore their vision. And apparently he can do that in other tissues like skin and heart and lung. So this is really the future. So until now, what do we have for our healthy longevity? Until now we have eat healthy, but not all the time, do exercise regularly, stress your body with cold showers, have good relationship and community life. And one last thing, which is crucial to gather it all together. Be optimistic. Previous studies reported that more optimistic individuals are, the less likely are they to suffer from chronic disease and die prematurely. Just a recent study from Stanford, following for 10 years around 100,000 men and women, showed that optimism is specifically related to up to 15% longer lifespan on average, and even and greater odds living to age of 85 or beyond. And I'm talking about healthy longevity. So when we look on the world where we are today, with the advanced technology and research, the future is already here. If we look at ourselves, our family, friends, we all want to feel good and look good. We want our parents to stay vital and energetic without dementia and chronic illnesses. My mom, she's 80 plus, completely energetic and totally active. Why cannot she enjoy Noam, her granddaughter, for another 10 good, healthy years? We succeeded to break the bonds of our limits at the beginning of life, like we did with Alex. So why can't we do the same at the end? The future is here. Longevity Center will be built soon, and it will have the science to diagnose and treat in order to live healthy longevity. The future is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Strauss. First of all, that research was amazing. I think we were all taking notes. And second of all, I want you to double check your notes that potato chips are not part of the longevity process. I feel like you might have forgotten that. Okay, so we have a few minutes to take some questions, and I know we all want to live forever and look fabulous. So please raise your hands and we'll come around with the microphone. So are you guys saying you are not interested in living longer, looking great? Any questions? No one. Einat, any questions? Oh, there we have a question. Fabulous.
Hello. I'm actually wondering about the skin to skin part. I'm just curious what it is about skin to skin with babies and newborns that actually does increase. Was it 20% you said? I don't know, it's like a health or the transition to life. What is it about skin to skin that really makes that transition easier for newborns?
So skin-to-skin care, I mean, touch by itself but when we touch each other, there is a release of hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is what we call the bonding hormone or the love hormone. And this hormone, when it releases in our body, it makes us feel in love. For example, in labor, the mom is full of oxytocin. That's why immediately she's connected to her baby. And also it acts in physiological levels. So we decrease heart rate, blood pressure, the babies are much more relaxed, and also the mom. So it has, first of all, the hormone release in both the baby and the mom. It helps the baby to be more relaxed. There are a lot of research that show that the baby gain weight much better. It reduces hospitalization days. So this is physiologically, and the skin-to-skin care, not only the oxytocin hormone, but also the fact that they are close, so the innate immunity is starting, and it improves the immune process.
I'm up since 4:30.
We have another question from Montreal. We're going to bring them up. Nope, that's us. But we're looking fabulous.
Hi, thank you for your wonderful speech. And I wanted to ask you a question. So I'm kind of short on optimism, but what about all kinds of supplements like vitamin C and all that stuff? Do you think that those are important because they're such a large part of the what's advertised to us? So thank you.
This is a very important question, and I have to say that first of all, longevity area is quite the last few years. It's quite new in research and trying to make it. There's a lot of research in animals and trying to convert it to humans. But the main thing and the important thing is longevity is what I call the 4 Ps. It's personal, precision, predictive, and preventive, which means that just saying take vitamin C or D or B12 is not, you're not, the main idea in medicine by itself, and especially in longevity, is that you need to be, it's a precision medicine. So each person, and also Professor Beeri mentioned it, it's very, depends on your omics, on your genomics, on how you metabolize your vitamins, how is your body, what are the levels of your vitamins or your mass index or your cognitive or your bones or your retina. So there are a lot of things to be considered, and each supplements also and intervention should be precisely tailored to you. And this is why we have trying to build clocks that will be tailored for you and not just overall supplements. I hope it answered the question.
Thank you so much for presenting us with all these amazing tips on how we're going to live longer and, more importantly, how we're going to live happier. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we are nearing the end of our program. So I have a list of the people who have won auction items. So I'm going to list them off really quickly.
Hi,
say a
I'm
couple
so
of
sorry.
words, and then you can go to the back and find Galit and Milit to fill out your forms. A few of you who've won the tickets, I just want to mention that we're really close friends, and I feel like, I should just maybe be there. So, gold earrings by Ayala. Writer is Odette Levy. Vivian Ziner for both of the gift bags. I'm sorry if I ruin anyone's name. Amy Langer, Skin Nutrition Tune-Up Package. Michael Wayman, the Parent Tested, Parent Approved Bundle. Risa Epstein, the second Parent Tested, Parent Approved Bundle, and the fourth. Julie Gonick, the fifth Parent Tested, Parent Approved Bundle. Galit Blumenthal, David Rocco's cookbook. Galia Fader, the headphones. Marina Schechtman, I love you dearly, 2 Raptors tickets. Esther Eisman, I love you dearly too, 2 Maple Leaf tickets. Chef on the Go meal gift certificate dinner for 2 is Rhonda. And Amy Langer again, thank you so much. Honeycomb Botanicals gift basket. So thank you everyone who made a purchase in the auction. So now that we've gained some insights on Sheba's amazing women, amazing accomplishments, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for attending this event. Like I said before, I know this was a new type of organization, or a new organization for many. You haven't heard of it. So I really appreciate you attending. Thank you to all the donors and sponsors. Thank you for having me as your host. And thank you. If you haven't had a chance yet, I encourage you, of course, to learn more about the Canadian Friends of Sheba at shebacanada.org. Donate, make a difference. Hope you enjoyed the brunch, our guest speakers, and we wish you a beautiful Sunday. Thank you so much.